Picture this: a Gen Z worker in Indonesia struggling to find stable employment. He accepts informal jobs in the logistics industry and drives up to 12 hours a day carrying goods. He gets paid less than $240 a month, which is just enough to cover basic living expenses. And life could get harder for him. Indonesian officials announced plans to ban overloaded and oversized trucks by 2027 to make roads safer. But drivers push back, saying it is the companies that overload them, yet only drivers face fines or jail. Stuck and frustrated, the drivers continue to drive, but also do this. The flag is from the anime One Piece, about a ragtag band of pirates who rebels against an oppressive world government. So how did this small way of expressing frustration go viral across Asia? Accompanied protests that toppled a government in just days. And what does it tell us about the change Gen Z youths in these countries want? I'm Wei. Over the past few months, I traveled to Nepal and Mongolia to understand what's driving the region's Gen Z protests, and found two nations brimming with restless young energy. Were you surprised 15 of you guys in a pub came out with a hashtag and you got rid of the Prime Minister?
Yes, just not being quiet about this, standing out against this injustice.
Nearly all the countries that's seen these protests have a large under 30 population. Academics call this the youth bulge. It's not necessarily a bad thing. With a large working population, it can lead to an economic boom. Classic examples are post-war Japan and post-independence Singapore. But that only happens if a government creates meaningful employment for these youths. A global study found when young people can't find work opportunities, large youth populations often become tinder for unrest. This is especially true in Nepal. Without enough good jobs on home ground, almost a quarter of Nepali households have at least one member working abroad. But Nepal's youth job crunch isn't new. It's been persistent for decades. So why protest now? In early September, the nepobaby trend became a flashpoint. Wealth inequality made not just visible, but also viral thanks to social media. But what's interesting is the trend of using the nepobaby hashtag to criticize the political elite and their families first surfaced somewhere else, in the Philippines. About a week before, in late August, this subreddit thread was created anonymously. The term lifestyle check would be familiar to many Filipinos. It's a mechanism by which state authorities audit a public official's finances to uncover unexplained wealth or corruption. Netizens were enraged by allegations that some government officials misappropriated funds from flood control projects. So Reddit users took it upon themselves to do an informal audit by pulling social media evidence of children enjoying the gains from their allegedly corrupt fathers. Those who were named and shamed then circulated as memes on TikTok and Instagram under the nepobaby hashtag. So apart from large youth populations, blatant corruption by the ruling elites is another key ingredient. In Indonesia, frustration was already running high around Independence Day in August. But angry Indonesians spilled en masse onto the streets after it was revealed that members of parliament were getting housing allowances nearly 10 times that of minimum wage in Jakarta. Similarly, Gen Z in Timor-Leste also took to the streets in protest of plans to spend public funds on SUVs for politicians. Pressured by the unrest, in Indonesia and Timor-Leste, the unpopular perks for politicians were scrapped. In the Philippines, protests continue as the government investigates corruption in flood control projects. But change can get far more drastic, such as in Nepal, where the government fell in under 48 hours. This can happen when those in rule are already on shaky ground. Nepal's government was a coalition of rival parties, and no government in Nepal had ever made it to a full 5-year term. When I went to Mongolia to meet Gen Z protesters, their situation echoed what we saw in Nepal. When young Mongolians swamped Ulaanbaatar over revelations about the Prime Minister's son's luxury lifestyle, his already fragile coalition government also couldn't hold. So whom does Gen Z trust to lead? In Nepal, the protesters voted over discord for a much older interim prime minister who was seen to be outside the entrenched elite and known for her work in anti-corruption. It says something about whom Gen Z thinks should be in charge. Someone who has an upright track record is likely to listen to them, to support them, and perhaps bring about change that can better their lives. And that person doesn't necessarily have to be young like them. Yet a study cautioned there is a declining ability of protest movements to secure lasting change. Social media has made it easier to mobilize people onto the streets, but as leaderless movements, it's harder to get coordinated to push for systematic change. Even so, for a Gen Z youth feeling stuck and with little left to lose, the choice is really this: no change at all, or the faint hope of one.